Welcome into a special edition of the Dirt Racing Podcast. A little background info on this episode. First of all, starting back in late December, early January, one night I was sitting around and those thoughts in my head was thinking about Danny Young. And then I thought about a little more for a couple months. Then finally, I went to go to the Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum in Knoxville and asked Bill Wright his opinion on it. And with his help, this show became a reality last Saturday. And I would also thank Marty Stevenson for coming and Mike Roberts. In the first part of this audio performance, you'll hear the opening, and then there's a video that was done 25 years ago when Knoxville Raceway was a weekly television show done by Chris Crone, and then two video clips from back in 1992 when Danny Young raced both Knoxville and Des Moines in the same night, that with helicoptering back and forth. Then I'll come back in at the end and talk a couple minutes to wrap it all up.
Yeah. Does everybody sit in the back seat wherever they go? Nobody wants the front, I guess.
I showered. I don't bite either.
My name is Bill Wright. I'm the museum coordinator here at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum, and we're just happy that you're here. Have some special guests here, and we want to remember Danny Young. Those of us who are old enough to remember Danny. Danny was my age and racing 25 years ago. He passed, and it's hard to believe it's been that long. I want to introduce the gentleman up here. Mike Roberts is going to act as our MC today, and Mike, of course, announces here at the track. But not only that, but he was around in those times and remembers not only Danny here at Knoxville, but different areas around the Midwest where Danny ran. In the middle, that's Marshall Haynes. And Marshall, it was his idea to have this. So let's give him a round of applause. Marshall runs the Dirt Racing Podcast, and he's going to record this on audio, and he's going to have that for everyone who couldn't make it today, so they can go back and listen to it if they want to do that. So he's going to do that for us. And of course, on the end, a lot of you know Marty Stevenson, and Marty crewed for Danny all those years as well, and he's got some stories. So I want to encourage anybody who has stories maybe to speak up a little bit. I was able to talk to a few people myself, so I can ask questions of Marty and some of the other panelists here about some of those stories. But if you have anything to add, please do, and we just welcome you here. I think how we'll start here is I don't trust myself with the TV, so we're going to try to start with the video. We have about a 5-minute remembrance clip that Chris Crone did for us back 25 years ago. So that might bring back some memories for you. We also have two news clips from Danny's helicopter flight. For those of you who don't remember, he raced both in Des Moines and here at Knoxville at an Outlaw show on a Friday night, and started there, came here, went back, came here again in a helicopter so he could race both tracks on the same night. So there's one from Channel 8, and then there's one from Iowa Racing Weekly that Jeff Grummer and the guys up there did. So I think we'll start with that, and then Mike, you can take it from there. How's that sound?
Works for me.
Yeah.
See you, Mark.
That's why you left the front open.
You're right, he's not good with TV.
No, he hasn't.
Can I turn it off? Was that you, Barb? There we go.
Good thing you could write.
It's debatable too.
There we go.
All right. There we go.
lost his life doing something that he loved to do.
Looking back, all the memory of the dance we shared, beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye?
Raced with Danny for many years, even back in the go-kart days, you know, where we all started.
Danny Young pulled up beside Tony Morrow. Side by side is good backside one of the 3-4 corners. Looks like Danny Young.
I think Danny made things happen. If he's on the track, he was going forward almost all.
There he goes. Danny Young follows him right on through. Danny Young dived down. Keeps the momentum. He comes off.
I held everything right long. Wasn't that kid? But if I'd only known how the king would fall, hey, who's to say? You know I might have changed it all. And I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain that I'd have had to miss. The it's my life.
It'll never be the same at Des Moines again. It was only fun racing because he was there, somebody to race with.
We've known him for quite a while, and he comes down Missouri races with us, and we got to be good friends with him, but he's dead.
Randy Martin into the lead in the 14M. Here comes Danny Young down on the bottom. Back pass for Randy Martin. Danny Young on the bottom. Trying to move around Jeff Hayes. Danny Young into the lead. Jeff Hayes. Out of the turn. Danny Young. Hayes. John Carney.
Week ago, Central Iowa sprint car fans in both Des Moines and Knoxville were a part of a rather unusual racing feat.
Tonight in her Eye on Sports Report, Heidi Sullivan takes a look at that feat, which you might call the honesty of Danny Young.
When Danny Young wants to race, there's nothing stopping him. Last weekend, the 22-year-old sprint car specialist from Des Moines had a problem. How to be in two places for races at once. Danny needed to race at the state fairgrounds in Des Moines at the same time he wanted to race at the Knoxville Raceway some 40 miles south. If he missed the limited feature in Des Moines, he jeopardized his points leader status. If he was absent from the unlimited feature in Knoxville, he would miss valuable mountain experience. What to do? Danny is enterprising as well as competitive. The answer to his dilemma?
The only way we could win it if we rented a helicopter. So that's what we did.
This whole thing, jumping from sprint car to helicopter to sprint car to helicopter, started out as a joking bet that snowballed into reality.
We just got to kidding each other and daring each other, and it happened just in about 5 minutes. To be honest with you, I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that's what they were going to do.
I think it's pretty interesting how you can catch two races in one night.
And now, here's how the Danny Young sprint car odyssey unfolded.
He just loves to race, and he likes to race up front, He's got 2 tracks where he's doing that, and it's just great that we can work it out.
One down, we won it, so now it's gonna work out like clockwork.
So Danny Young took off into the night once more for Knoxville, where the crazy car to copter caper would end. Of his 4 races, Danny finished first in 3, winning the hearts of countless sprint car fans. With an eye on sports, this is Heidi Soliday.
What a busy Friday night.
Definitely, yes.
And welcome aboard to another edition of the Racing Show. Now, there were plenty of happy victory laps this weekend, but no driver was as sky high as Danny Young. He had a chance to wrap up the point championship at the State Fair Speedway in Des Moines Friday night, but also wanted to run with the World of Outlaws in Knoxville. Now, that left Danny up in the air, literally. He caught up with Young in Knoxville, where he told us about the ride of the night.
We had to be here tonight, and we wanted to win the points deal at the fairgrounds, so my dad and the body parts store, we got the kids around, they said, well, the only way we could do it is rent a helicopter. Hey, world record again. Reaches to the best of our knowledge, has never been done in automobile racing history.
They want to catch 2 races in one night. This is about the only way to get back and forth taking to go. All systems ready to go. Ready to go.
We come down, we won the heat down here after we won the feature at the fairgrounds, and once we won the heat, I knew that we had plenty of time to go back up and race the other feature. At first I didn't think, I didn't think it'd work, racing 2 places at the same night, but the way it went just perfect, and back and forth, constantly racing. I'm looking forward to finishing up right up in there with the Outlaws. Nobody's ever tried that before.
Would you like to do it again?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And that was high-flying fun for Danny Young. He did finish 15th in that World of Outlaw feature, but he was still head and shoulders above the competition. And when you get in with the Outlaws, there's always plenty of competition.
I know you guys want to keep watching that.
He wasn't rhyming.
Was it about 92 when he did that?
Head and shoulders, though, he did that deal.
Yeah.
Head and shoulders.
I think that was 93, wasn't it? Was that 1993 you guys did the helicopter then? Oh, come on, Marty. That's what you're here for, buddy.
Driving the Sonner car.
Yeah.
It was 93.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. I guess I don't know where it actually begins. I had a lot of plans coming into this deal. When you watch that video, both of them actually, the helicopter one and the tribute one, and it starts bringing back other memories I'd forgotten about. And I remember when I was crewing back then, so I didn't have a microphone in my hand or nothing. I think I might have been working for the radio station at the time, but I remember when I first saw him here. I think it was '88 was your first year here, guys. You remember that, Marty?
I wasn't with him.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, '88. All right. 1988, and back then Duncan's. I don't think they had control of the track then. I think they took a year or 2 off in that area, and I don't know who did it, but we ended up with this huge hole down here for a couple of years in turn 1. If you guys were around a little bit back then, and everybody did their best to try to dodge around that thing, and here comes this 3Y car just blasting through this hole every time. We're thinking, what is this idiot thinking? And what he was thinking was that was the fastest way around the track, because he never missed a beat every time he hit that darn hole. And that thing would swallow the car up, and he'd come bouncing out and pass 2 or 3 cars. And what I later learned on, between the interviews and stuff that I did on the radio, and as you can see on TV, not only was he a hell of a race car driver, he was a hell of an interview. I mean, and for someone that young to be able to elaborate on what they do and how the race was going for him, and even on that bit with the helicopter, I mean, you just don't see that. And I don't know if he'd ever been in a helicopter before that particular night.
I talked to Chris Walraven last night, and one of the things he said was, he talked about the holes. He said he thought it was better to go straight through them than go sideways. and keep that speed up. So
Yeah, and that's how he won a lot of races. I mean, he just drove right through them, and everybody thought he was nuts, and it turned out it was a genius move. I mean, and I can't think of any time the hole ever got him, because everybody else would try that, and they hit it sideways and start flipping. So
before we get too far, let's talk to Marty about the helicopter night, because I think he might have been on it.
Was you on the helicopter?
Yeah, I got a ride on the helicopter. Wasn't supposed to. Danny ended up breaking his helmet, one of the spuds off the side of it, and so he needed somebody to fix it. Well, he had to have it fixed before he got to Knoxville. So he says, Marty, you're riding on the helicopter with me.
Have you ever been on a helicopter before that?
No, never have, never been on one since. But
Yeah.
I'd love to do it again.
The one time I was in a helicopter, I mean, literally, you think they just go straight up. They nose up like this first, and then they take off and scare the hell out of me. I don't know what like you guys, but you guys are a lot tougher than I was back then. So.
As soon as we got off the ground in Des Moines, it seemed like we went maybe 5 minutes, and the next thing you could see Knoxville lights.
Yeah.
It just seemed like they were right there, but it wasn't. But it was kind of neat that when we pulled in, or flew in, I guess, everybody was out on the racetrack walking around. I was like, what the hell are they doing? Well, what they were doing is somebody was slicing tires and stuff, so they went out and walked the track to see if they could find that piece. And then everybody's like, no, they're stalling for Danny Young.
I know I was crewing back then. That's what I said that. We were stalling for him.
Oh, it was you that said that.
It was me, yeah. One thing I do remember when they came up with the helicopter idea and Cappy found out about it. And, I mean, everybody knows Cap, but you have to understand Cappy's mentality. Well, we're not going to wait on him, but I suppose we better give him a place to land. That was the first thing he came up with. And that was actually more difficult than what people realize, because we have rock outside the racetrack, so where are we going to land this thing at? So I don't know how they came up with the logistics, but they did pull it off, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like that since then, really. I mean, some guys have flown in on jets, but they've always drove a car here, but nobody's landed a helicopter here, so it was certainly inventive.
We were out in Phoenix, and somebody had a helicopter out there. But I don't know if they were actually racing or not, but they did actually land the helicopter at the racetrack.
We saw Butch talking about it was kind of a dare thing. Whose idea was it to come up with the helicopter?
Probably Jim's. Was it yours, Jim?
Was it yours, Jim?
You paid for it. That'd be yours.
I didn't even know Jim was still around until he popped in here just a little bit ago. So, when'd you get out?
Jim said he's 82 years old.
Are you really?
Looking pretty good for 82.
I don't look that good now. When did you guys first start racing together?
Oh, I started out with Kenny McCarl,
Right.
and Danny was racing Gilbert Saunders, the 410 car, and Kenny was racing a 410, so I couldn't help them both. And so Danny says, well, help me on the 360, and then you can help Kenny on the 410. Well, Kenny didn't win any races, and Danny did, so I guess I went with Danny. But it's racing with the youngs is a little different. You end up being family, believe it or not, you know. And Butch will still punch you regardless of your family or not, if you say something wrong or whatever. But the young family, there's a lot of them sitting here, and I miss you guys, and I miss your brother, your grandpa, your dad, your husband. I miss them to death every day. I'm sure you guys do too.
You joke about Butch and punching anybody. Danny, again, the racer's racer, but very intelligent too, because he would wait to take off his helmet. Most drivers took off their helmet as soon as they pulled in, but he'd wait.
Yeah.
Because he knew there could be a possibility.
That Butch was going to come up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys were talking about Danny jumping holes and stuff like that. And one year we went to Sedalia, Missouri. First race of the year, we always went down Sedalia. And this guy pulls up next to us in this brand new hauler and pushes out this brand new number 15 car and playing this country music. And Butch says, "Who's that?" Danny says, "Oh, that's some Danny Schatz guy. He's the kid from Sioux Falls. And he got Gertie Motors too." So, oh no. Okay, but he's a rookie. He don't know what he's doing. So I think the promoter's name was Betty or Beverly or something like that. She come over and checked the motors and said, "You can't run them, they're illegal." And Butch went off, you know. He told her, he says, I'll fly Earl Gertie in here and have him check these motors, and if these motors are wrong, you're paying us for winning the feature. Well, she thought about it. She says, okay, you guys can race. And Danny went out there and raced and won it. And then the next night, we're going to go to Holt Summit, Missouri. So Butch tells him there when they're interviewing Danny after the race, after we won, he says, yeah, we're going to go out for steak dinner. He took us straight over to McDonald's. Remember that? So we get to Holt Summit, Missouri at 8:30 in the morning, and there is nobody there. So we go to town and we buy some kites. We're going to fly kites. So we get these kites out and we get them flying, and that gets boring. And Clarence was with us, the guy that worked on the car, and he had some fishing poles. So we decided we were going to go fishing. So we take these fishing poles, we go catch these fish. Now what are we going to do with them? So they had a horse trough that you went and got a 5-gallon bucket of water to wash your car with. We put all the fish in there. Then we look up at these kites and we're like, them kites ain't high enough. So we take the fishing poles and we hook them to the kites, and about as high as we can get them. And about that time here, the people show up to work on the racetrack and this and that. But with Butch, you never knew when he was going to go racing. And it was always early in the morning. There were some nights we'd get home and Danny would say, you better sleep on the couch because Butch is going to be calling here in about an hour, and about 5 minutes later the phone would ring. He goes, let's go. We're going to Sioux Falls. Well, it's 5:30 in the morning, Butch. You know, we'll be there by noon. You know, they want to. Well, we went. And with Butch, you had to watch him. When you got to a gas station, he's getting gas. First thing you want to do is go to the bathroom. Okay. Second thing you want to do is get all your stuff you want, throw it up on the counter. Because Butch is going to get fuel, and then when he's getting done with fuel, he's going to go pay for it. If you got the stuff up there before he come and pay for it, he was going to pay for everything. And if you didn't go to the bathroom first and you waited, you might not have been able to go to the bathroom. Because I remember Scott Parker come running out of the gas station once, buttoning up his pants, like, wait for me, and Butch is pulling out. So there's a lot of stories that you could talk about Danny forever, but he was a good person. He was a good racer, and he loved the sport.
One of the things that totally amazed me about Danny Young is, I can't remember what year it was, you may have to help me out with this, Ronnie Schuman's guys came to town, non-wing and CRA guys, 89 or 90, I want to say, yeah, and takes off the wing, and has no problem at all adjusting to a non-wing car, which is, as you guys see today out here, it's not impossible, but it takes a certain talent. And I think he ran 6th in his very first feature in a non-wing car at Knoxville. And the thing you have to remember is we hadn't run non-wing cars since 1982, so nobody had any experience on setup or anything on a local level. Most of them hadn't touched it, or the ones that were or had raced in 82 weren't even racing here anymore. They were out with the Outlaws or whatever. So the fact that he could take a wing off and then turn around and put a wing back on and be so fast just totally amazed me.
It was amazing he could drive the cars. Some of the cars we gave him were so tight. You could watch in some of them films, he's just pushing. I remember a guy at Fort Brooks saying, man, he'd be fast if somebody loosened that car up. But, you know, Danny liked to run the bottom, and he drove really super hard and had a good motor behind him. So he could drive a tight race car and get out of them tight problems like a push in the front end, you know. We could never time worth a damn because we were always so tight, you know. But when it was time to go racing, the track would dry up, the track would come to us, and Danny would be fast. And then, you know, Danny had one thing on his mind, and that was to win races. Never to run second, to win. Every night he went out, he wanted to win. He wasn't unhappy if he didn't win, you know. He would say, that person was faster than me. And it wasn't very often. But when he put that helmet on, he strapped in there, and Bill tightened him down. He was out there to win races, and that's what gave him a good fan base. Is because you knew if you went to go watch Danny race, if it was Des Moines, and he'd pass 12 cars in one lap, take the lead, and he did that quite often. You know, that's a driver there. Yep. You know, you don't ever see anybody else do that. You know, 1 or 2 cars maybe a lap, but 11 cars, he always got to start 12. He'll be leading by the first lap. You ever done that? Me neither.
He was asking Higday that, by the way. I remember Higday's first night. Was it your first night? Second night, Billboard? Oh,
You have it on the fence.
oh, that's right.
The notch is still out.
Okay, yeah. Cappy wanted you to pay for that fence too. But I know. Iowa State Fairgrounds, of course, the illustrious Fair Board got together and tore that thing down, and everybody's hated it ever since then. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. But that is one place. I mean, he was fast everywhere, but he dominated Iowa State Fairgrounds.
Yeah, he did, and there was a lot of holes and ruts there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, with the stock cars and stuff running, and he'd sit there and bounce through them like, oh, nobody's going to hit the fence, and the car would sit, take off, and go. And other people like Tim St. Arnold would hit the fence.
Was that his favorite track or not?
I
Or did
think
he have
so.
one?
Our biggest challenge was to run the 360, win that race, take it home, take the motor out, push it to the car wash, and Danny would let me push him to the car wash, and then I'd get in the car and he'd push me back, and I'd be soaking wet because it'd all be splashing off. Put the motor back in the car, go back to the fairgrounds, watch the last feature to get paid. Because it was just right around the corner. But that was how fast we had it down to where we could do that before the race was even over. Wash the car and change the motors.
Marshall, you got something?
I was reading in the Charleston book when they brought up Lawton the one time. It was a tire situation. They wouldn't let him go back out.
Well, Butch won't change tires. And Butch did that quite often. Marty, change that tire. Well, they're pushing out. Change it anyway. So, that's when they had the bounty out on Danny. And I was telling my wife this story the other day. So Danny's just pushing on the racetrack, and that'd been on turn 2 at the fairgrounds. Well, they're coming out of 3 and 4, and they're throwing the green flag. Danny catches all the way up and gets all the way behind Matt Morrow, and Matt Morrow wins. And that was the first time Danny got beaten in a long time. And then Butch was not happy.
Was there a wrench involved in this thing at the end?
No, there was a fist.
There was a fist.
Fist,
Okay.
yeah.
I can't remember. I knew there was something.
And you were talking about Lottie?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you got it figured out now?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why we went over and ran at I-80 Raceway, because he wasn't having us back at Fairgrounds. So we go over there, and that's a brand new racetrack, and brand new staff and everything, and they don't know anything. So Butch one night forgot to tighten the fuel line, checking the barrel valve, and Danny come around, and he's got fuel all over him, and there's a little fire. And so I go over to help Danny get out of the car. Butch goes over and grabs a fire extinguisher away from the guy and blows it the wrong way. So now me and Danny, I'm trying to get Danny out of the car, and you can't see anything. And it's like, Danny gets out, who's running that fire extinguisher? And the guy goes, I am running that. So that was kind of funny there too, And a lot of this stuff, you just got to be there to. It's like a comical show with the two of them, But it was fun, it was all good fun. One time I went to Norfolk, Nebraska, and you had to have a special tire, Well, but you had 2 of them. So then Matt Morrow and Tony showed up. Matt was just starting into the sprint cars, and Tony had been in it quite a while, and they didn't have the right tire. And Butch being the way he is, give anything to anybody. I'll give you a tire. And Danny stand on top of the trailer. You dumb son of a bitch. We might need that tire to win this race, And we won the race. And on the way home, we got lost. Do you remember that, Nicole? Or Ray?
How did you get lost?
Well, we weren't following Butch. Because if you're following Butch, you don't know what way he's going to pass. Over here on the shoulder or over here where normal people do. Most of the time it's on the shoulder. And then, we followed him in Danny's red truck that he loved to death. He went to Waters to buy it. He drove it down the road as fast as it'll go, back down the road as fast as it'll go, pulled it in and says, I'll buy it. Yeah, but he loved that truck. But Danny would ride right on the back of the trailer with that truck, and you didn't know what way Butch was going to go. And if you stayed there, you didn't know if a car was going to come right at you or what. It was kind of comical going racing with him.
You mentioned Danny being upset about a tire, but I got to be honest with you. In all the times I've been around, I never did see him really. Maybe I should rephrase this. I never saw him as mad as Butch, ever. But I never saw him get mad at anybody really. Not here anyway.
No, I really never seen him get mad. I mean, he might have got mad at me a couple times for not doing the right thing, but pretty much he was a pretty lovable guy, you know.
He couldn't have got mad at you for not running fast enough. My God, I don't think you ever walked anywhere I seen you.
No, and I still like to run, you know, and it's fun. And Jim thought I ought to try to carry everything. So, you know, first it was like Butch's like, I need an air gauge and an air tank and a 9/16 and an 11/16 and a 5/8 and a 3/4 and a 3/4 ratchet. I'm like, how am I going to carry all this stuff? Well, Jim come up with this idea. He's going to make a backpack for the air tank. It's like, come on, Jim, I'm already carrying enough stuff the way it is. Well, Jim made it, and I tried it. It didn't work very good. It hurt like hell. But did you ever sell any of them? No. But we tried things. We had fun with it. Jim was probably one of our best sponsors we had. He'd give us anything we needed. Bought a parts trailer and let me and Danny try to put it together. And it's a good thing because he didn't know where nothing was at. So anytime I needed something, I just ran in and grabbed it and then told him what it was on the way out. So it was fun.
For those of you who don't know Jim Schneider sitting right over here, a lot of people know Jocko's is still here, but Doug Brown, previous owner. Jim was stacked before that. I can't say any racer never owed you anything at one time. I mean, and it was like that way with everybody. You'd run in, grab the part, and run out and say, you know, either who you were, or most time you knew who you were anyway. But I know this brought you out, Jim. Do you have a favorite story? I'll be more than happy to bring this microphone out to you. You sure? All right. I've never seen him quiet in my life. Yeah, I know it. Marshall?
Back on his last win here, the 360 show, I got to thinking they had to park clear in the barns because it rained so much. And I didn't know at the time that would be his last win. Nobody did. But just afterwards, see the happiness, that's what I remember most. But like you were here a couple weeks ago for the USAC, we had the nice pits. We didn't have that back then.
Right. Yeah, it was something else. The way things used to be back then. Everybody was kind of the racer's racer. We all wanted to stay here no matter what. I think we got old what happened. But you guys mentioned traveling and out in Arizona. Was there ever a track that you felt like you were just snake bit at? Because you guys were fast just about everywhere you went to.
Actually, when we went out there, I was helping Daniel Cockshell, and Danny Young would fly out on the weekends and help Daniel Cockshell in the head while I worked on the cars. And it was fun. We got a little crazy once in a while.
Do tell.
But I can't tell. There's some things I can't tell.
Arizona has statutes
like
limitations.
half the stuff I can tell you, the other half I better not. You know.
There's your next book right there, Bill Dead. The tell-all, no tell-all stories. Any tracks that were snake bit you guys anywhere? Just could not be fast or could not dominate?
I don't think so.
I'm going to say, every place I can think of.
I don't think so. Sedalia, we were fast. Burlington, we were fast. I-80, we were fast. You know, when we went to Algona or Mason City, you know, we just dominated. I mean, you look at Danny's stats and it's like, well, he didn't win very many races at Des Moines, but how did he get all these wins? That's because we raced 3 nights a week, you know, and it didn't make a difference where it was. We went. If we left at noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon and got back at 3 and tried to go to work the next day, because everybody had to work, you know. And working with Butch was fun and Danny. Yeah.
Can you tell those stories?
No.
There's got to be one.
One story, well, chainsaw fight at the end of the driveway, ring a bell?
Was that on Saturday by chance?
I don't know what day it was. But, yeah, sometimes the chainsaws won't start, but they'll still scare people, you know. But they love cutting trees. That's their life. That's what they still do. That's how they made all their money.
There was one Saturday where you guys were late. Was that the same story?
No, I
Ronnie and,
I'm gonna bring you a microphone so everyone can hear you. Because there was a delay. If there was any time we waited on him, that was the night.
This is Don Young. This is Danny's oldest brother.
yeah, I'm Danny's oldest brother, but they pulled into my dad's driveway and irritated. It actually was 2 houses down from where I lived. There was a guy named Gordon, and it was his brother just got out of prison. And we found out, they said he's one of the toughest guys there is. So Ronnie was about a foot taller than me, and Danny was there. Danny was only, I just got a newspaper clipping last week. The neighbors found it for me, but the story's in the Des Moines Register. But so they're out there arguing over who pulled out and who, whatever. So Ronnie went out and hit this guy 2 or 3 times, and the guy just kept coming back. So Rick Field, he passed away, but he ran up to Ronnie's truck. They were doing a tree job, grabbed a saw, but he didn't know how to start it. And he kept running, and the guy started laughing. It's going, brr, brr, brr. The guy started laughing. He hit him right over the head with the saw. And then, come to find out, I can say this after people's gone, but there was a guy that used to own Sunrise Tap back then, Larry West. He owned it for a little while. He had a little Ford Escort. He was watching all this. He told me this later. Since most of these people are all gone, I'll tell it anyway, but he waited for the right time. This guy who was crossing the road, he came by and clipped him with the front end and knocked him over and kept on going. It was just crazy stuff that went on. Yeah, he hit him with his fender and stuff, but I missed it. I was fishing, I'd probably been in it too. Okay, I'm Donnie. I'm the oldest brother. I'm the only one left kind of now, but my mom's still around, but Butch and Ronnie's gone. That's my wife, Julie. My cousin Billy right here. My cousin Denny right here, his girlfriend. We got Hot Rod. He's, how am I going to call him Hot Rod? My nephew? Cousin? His real, I don't even know, Greg Stitt is his real name. That's Billy the third, Billy Young. Bill was, his dad was on the crew chief, my dad's brother.
He's a great man.
Is he? So then this is Ricky. And then Nicole, Danny's daughter. We got little Danny Young. How do we call him? She named him the same. And then Dallas, we got Dallas. Oh, Ryan's here. Good friend, Mike Arnold right here, always a real good friend. He did a lot of wondering stuff with Danny. What do you got to say, Mike?
He only needed, I know one thing, he only needed 3 tires on that car. Went around the fairgrounds, man. I had one buddy told me the other day down there, an hour later, he says, I used to ride with Al Cole, I-80. He said, Danny'd ride with us, so he wouldn't have to ride with Budge. I could understand that. And this guy, friend of mine, he said, used to get in fights over Danny Young. So I imagine these other guys that wanted somebody else to win, and, you know, but that was pretty interesting, getting in fights. And, oh, man, just a great guy. You can't beat him, man. Just like somebody said, man, I've never seen the guy, you know, easy going, man. Just, you know, but gosh, I'd sat with Ronnie and a couple of us, and we just, every Friday, you know, just something to see how a guy could go and pass one lap, man. You're 12 cars. Kicked ass and took names. I don't know what else you say.
I think one of the videos we saw there, and it was the 360 class, smaller wing on top and left front up. Because Danny did like run the bottom. He was really good at it. But then everybody caught on to that in the heat races, so they'd all block the bottom, and then he just zing him on the top side. That's what you saw in that video up there. I mean, just talented anywhere. I said this before, and I'll say it a million times, you know, if we don't lose him, we don't have the champions that we have out here now. We have a different champion. I mean, he was just phenomenal. And Marshall, I know you've done a lot of stats and a lot of homework there with the wins and the features and everything. The year we lost him, I looked up at Des Moines stats. I'd never done this before. And I think of all the races up until July 19th, he had only lost one race that year up in Des Moines. He was on dominant terror again up there. So it was unreal.
Then he was supposed to race the next night here in the modified, the Harris class when they used to have it.
Yep.
Not too many people remember that. That was a weird night too, when we had the fair race.
Yeah.
People don't know that today.
Yeah, he was excited about that race. He really wanted to race it because we went to the Bloomfield the night before that, and I don't even think he raced when we went to Bloomfield. I think he just went to watch the car. I think somebody else was racing the car that he was supposed to race. But he could race anything. You put him in a go-kart at a rental go-kart track and he'd kick your butt, And very competitive. Whatever he wanted to do, he was competitive. Hunting mushrooms, he was competitive. He said, "We're going mushroom hunting." I'm like, "Okay." So I jump in the truck and we drive over to West Des Moines. We're in these fancy houses and he stops and I'm like, "I thought we were going mushroom hunting." He goes, "We are right behind that house. We cut trees over there last week. I seen all these. We walked over there and started picking up mushrooms." I'm like, "Okay, I'm with you." And that's the fun things that we did. Selling firewood. I tell people, Daddy would tell them, you get a rib of wood, so he'd stick his hands way up, and this tall, and then he'd say, that means $75. And he'd say, "Okay, well, will you stack it over there?" And he'd say, "Yeah, do you want that air stacked?" "Well, sure." So he'd lay one piece this way, one piece this way, and then one piece this way. He said, "It gets air through it." "Well, it's only half the firewood." He says, "I don't care." That was one of his things. "Do you want that air stacked?"
The answer would be no.
Somebody called Butch and said, "This wood won't burn." Butch said, "Put it in the microwave." He said, "It still won't burn." Butch said, "How's it taste?"
One of Danny's favorite saying, though, people ask him what kind of wood it was, he'd sell this knot of it. And then, right when he got the check, it ain't hickory either, he'd sell too.
I know Danny was looking forward to the future. We had talked a couple of times, it's like, "Man, I can't wait till we get old and we get to walk through the pits." And people say, "Oh, that's them two old guys," But he was excited. He had built a garage right before he passed, and he wanted to move the sprint car shop there, and Butch was going to kind of set back a little bit, and we had a decent sponsor lined up that we thought we could go racing on our own, me and Danny, and it just never worked out. So, but loving the sport of sprint cars, you just can't walk away. So he died on Wednesday. That Friday, me and Nicole and Ricky sitting at the house, and kind of still in awe, and I'm sitting outside by the trampoline, and I could hear him racing at the fairgrounds. I could hear that sound, and that was Danny telling me to go back to the racetrack. Don't give it up. And I'm glad I didn't, because I get to hear more stories and remember more about Danny that way than just walking away from it. So I miss him. I think everybody does.
The family here proved it. Cole, I hadn't seen you for I don't know how long, years, and the legacy continues now. I like that.
So the question is, are you going to race? Would you like to?
Huh?
What do you think, Mom? What do you think, Grandma? No? You raised four-wheeler? Yeah, Coke syrup, wasn't it? Battle Barn Coke syrup, yeah.
Battle of Barn. Go to a fight and a race breaks out.
Absolutely.
Not that I know anything about that.
Lost one.
That's right.
Lost one.
I have a story.
Okay, hang on, Mark.
This ought to be good.
I'd say stand up, but nobody can tell the difference. So.
We went to Webster City one time to watch the sprint car races, and Butch and Danny were there, of course. And Butch liked to give hand signals a lot, whether they were good ones or not. He gave them. And Danny was coming down the backstretch, and Butch is out there, and he picks up these mud clods, and he's throwing them. at Danny, and Mike and I were just laughing, and Danny went around. The next time Butch is out there, he got closer, and Danny just steered toward him, and Butch goes running back to the pit area, and we are just like, oh my God, you know. But it was just one of those things that, you know, you've seen often, but, you know, you just, yeah, and that sticks in my mind as one of the funniest things about Butch and Danny, because that was just, it was fun.
Speaking of that, Jack Herway was talking about that, sent me the message about it, and said one fan came up to Butch, and Butch told him it's none of his business, pretty much.
That's probably not how he said it, but go ahead.
If you want, I can't.
No, that's all right.
I'm putting the clean version in there. So he went back to his thing, but that's Danny then listened. Yeah.
You brought up Webster City, and I remember a story, and I was refreshed by this story actually a couple weeks ago when we were in the Corn Belt Nationals here. They mentioned, I can't remember the driver, was it Darlin, or who got the 5 decades they've won a feature in?
Drought.
Lloyd Beckman. Yeah, but Droud's who they were talking about the other night. Lloyd Beckman actually had 7. That's where I was going with this, because it was thanks to Butch that he got that win in the 7th decade.
Yeah.
His first win was in 1939, and he won every decade up until the 90s too, because they went to Webster City, and I never will forget, I can't remember who I was racing for then, but I seen Lloyd walking over after hot laps over in turn 1, and I mean, his head was about as low as it could go. And I walked over there, and I said, what's going on with you? He said, I can't get used to this damn wing. So I said, well, all right. I said, well, you can't take off. So I said, you could flatten it out a little bit. And you guys, well, I don't know if you talked about it or what, but he came out with a flatter wing heat race and just went out there and smoked him on the heat race. He come back in, he goes, that was pretty cool. Now can we take it off? No, he still can't take it off. Well, he ended up winning the feature that night. And you probably remember this. I know I remember because I mean, everybody went up there congratulating him. He wouldn't get out of the car until somebody handed him his teeth, though. You know, I can't remember, was Butch carrying the teeth or somebody else was carrying his teeth?
Well, Butch took his teeth out a lot.
Yeah. That was ever a good thing.
Anytime you can sit down to eat, there they are, right on the table. If anybody needs them, they're there. If you need some teeth.
I hope Lloyd had his own teeth in then, maybe not. But yeah, that triggered a memory I had there just now. That, you know, you think about that, 7 decades, that's a long time. And if it wasn't for Butch and it wasn't for Danny, Lloyd Beckman wouldn't have had that opportunity at all. So it's a pretty neat deal. I don't remember, because he was getting ready for the Masters Classics, what he's doing. I don't remember the results of that deal, but
I can tell you that.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah, he left the fuel on, locked the motor up.
Is that what it was?
Remember that, Jim? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made the show. I mean, we were in. It's just, you know, by the time we figured it out, you got to pull all the plugs out, back it off,
right,
dry it all out, put plugs back in. And we just didn't have time to do it.
But won Webster City, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, Danny liked Webster City. I think he won 2 features in one night there, I do believe, in Webster City. And then, you know, every night he ran, and he'd get interviewed, Dave Reef, or what was the other gentleman? Jeff Drummond. And they'd say, okay, now, Danny, how are we going to do this a little different tonight than we did last week or last night? You know, because it was like, so you watch it on Sundays, it's like, okay, once Danny's done talking, we just shut it off, you know. But, yeah, he won a race at least every week there. I mean, we raced a lot and raced hard.
The Burlington race, this is from 1994, where he wanted to run both classes, but they wouldn't let him.
That's the first time I ever drove a sprint car. I couldn't say raced it. Danny's like, you want to warm that car up? I'm like, well, sure, but I don't have a suit. He says, put mine on. Now, Danny was a lot bigger than me, you know, so I'm walking around. And I'd never been in a sprint car. It'd just be like anybody else, never been in a sprint car out there. You're afraid to push the gas. So I go around, and I come back, and I says, that's pretty fast, wasn't I? He's like, you didn't get it off either.
But I remember his sponsor, the Van Dyke Heating and Cooling.
Yep.
The show in Des Moines, in the early, like I think it's the home show, he had to be there. Mm-hmm. So I sat and talked to him for an hour because nobody was coming up to him. Didn't know who he was.
Yeah, I remember we did put the car in the home show for that. And then he put it in a couple World of Wills shows there in Des Moines.
What were you doing at the home show, Marshall?
My parents wanted to go.
He got drug there.
Because I was little at the time.
You probably thought that was something else, a race car.
Yeah.
Up until then, you probably thought there's not going to be a big deal at the home show. So.
I just went because I love coming here. And then back to 93, you could have 3 awards on that year. Rain, Danny, and Danny.
Yep. Right.
I remember one time we were in Sedalia, Missouri, and they had these trophy girls, and they had their bikinis, Budweiser bikinis on and everything, and Danny won the race. Usually Danny wins the race, and we'll all go up and get our pictures taken with him and the trophy and the girls, and Danny will jump in the car and push him back to the pits. So these girls were pretty good looking. And so I wait for Danny to get in the car, and Danny turns around and looks at me and says, "You get in the car, I'll walk with the girls this time."
Always thinking.
But back to the tribute video, I remember the Saturday night we had the 360 Nationals that week, and it was Friday night was just the heat races, and Saturday they had all the drivers like you saw out there, remembering him.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's on the beginning of the video.
I want to try something.
Hang on, Jim here. I knew I'd get you to talk.
I'll see you guys later. I can remember when we were on a tour down through Las Cruces, New Mexico. Uncle Bill and Danny. And we were in the pits getting ready for the race. Lo and behold, here goes a jackrabbit by. Honest to God, a jackrabbit. Uncle Bill and Danny chase and corner this jackrabbit in the pits. Now, we're getting ready for a race, and they're chasing jackrabbit. They reach down, both of them, to grab this rabbit. And of course, in the summertime, the rabbits lose their hair, and they both wound up with a handful of hair, and the rabbit took off. But 2 grown men chasing a jackrabbit, you couldn't have more fun than with those guys. And we got hometown a lot on that tour. And if you've ever been hometown, we got it. We won the first race in Las Cruces, and from that race on, we were the last car in the last heat to time. And that's what we did, and we never won, but we got second on races. Had a tremendous amount of fun. So that's just one of the stories. Yeah, no, I could go on. The night that Danny and David Hesper was out here racing. Anyway, Danny was leading, and something happened. There was a yellow flag, and David got right up behind him. And Danny knew that David was right there. So Danny knew that he had to get away from him, so he slowed down coming into turn 1 and turn 2, and David was right on his tail. And Danny kept the car between David and the cone. And just as he got to the cone, he swerved out, and David hit the cone and had to go back. Danny laughed about that for so many times after that. It was so, and I know David, if he was around, he'd have to laugh today, but it was so good. Danny just let him land it to the door, closed the door. So, yeah, a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, watching some of the old videos where we did start on the back straightaway, you're like, wow, they can pass coming out of 4? Oh yeah, the cone's on the back straightaway. Yeah. You got some stats there? Let's hear how you really did.
I have the Knoxville stats. 9 360 wins, 20th on the all-time list. Track champion in 93. 2 410 wins, and I can't remember what the dates were. But on 360 Nationals, 2 top 5s and 10s, and led 1 lap.
I think the first 410 was 1990, I believe. I was looking at it the other day. Yeah. Come on, Bill, you're my go-to guy right now.
Rookie of the year, 88.
Rookie of the year, 88. Yeah.
And there was only one year he really raced the 360 class. Or
Yeah, 93.
410 class.
Yeah.
Mostly here.
Yeah.
The one year he ran it, he won the championship over there. So.
That's what I mean. He was so versatile because unless you do it, you run a big wing, you run a little wing, and then you run no wing, and then you throw it back on all the same sequence again.
All driver.
Yeah, it's all driver. I mean, it just, because that's just something, you know, we're fortunate enough now we see this guy by the name of Kyle Larson to kind of do that right now. I mean, can you only imagine? I mean, and the money he's got behind him. So, yeah, just completely amazing.
And speaking of the media part, this is before all the media hype of podcasts and all that. I think Danny could fit right in on that.
He could fit in then. I don't think he could fit in the media now. So I just watched that.
A lot of bleeping going on.
Yeah, exactly. So
Marty was mentioning I-80, and you mentioned the night you had trouble, but he won 8 out of 12 at I-80 that year. So it wasn't like he had a whole lot of problems over there.
No, there was pretty good competition over there.
Oh,
You know, we had the 1M car over there, John Drow driving that, and some other good drivers from around there. And it's a big track.
exactly. Anybody else have any stories or any questions out there?
What about you, Hick Day? You got anything?
Come on, Dick Day. Statutes of
The
limitations.
ones you can't talk about, right? We'll talk about them on the parking lot here a little bit.
Maybe we should have a dingus version of this later on tonight.
Ooh.
Have at it.
Huh?
I got one, Bill. Remember we went through the results? How many are still racing?
Yeah.
That's
Not
like
too many, yeah.
No. Randy Martin was here a couple weeks ago. He got
We-
inducted in the Knoxville Sprint Car Hall
we
of Fame.
figured Tom Lynn's and I forget the other one.
Yeah.
Tom Lenz, and then who's racing the 305 class now?
Walray.
Chris
Walray.
Walray.
I think that's about it.
But just looking at this outlaw from that night, Honshield,
Yeah.
Jeff Swindell, Terry, just some of the names back then. And that was a weird night too, because if you forgot, that was the first night Lasowski was in the 77, and they stayed back because Kings Royal, they stayed for the 360 Nationals too, happened to win that.
I can't remember what year Danny made the Knoxville Nationals, but I remember Butch was saying, yeah, the start pays $10,000, we can buy a new car. You know, and then I think he finished 11th. I'm pretty sure it was 11th.
Have that.
He got 6. That would have been in 91.
94, started 17th, finished 11th.
Yeah, at the Knoxville National, right?
Yeah.
I think that was his best Knoxville National finish.
First Knoxville National, was it 91 that he made the AMA?
I want to say 91.
Like I say, he made the AMA before that, I know that, so. I always had to figure out who I was working for, then I kind of back everything up after that, so.
I know he was driving, somebody else drove the 3Y car because he was in the 81.
I drove for Marty Johnson, he drove he drove for Guy Forbrick, we talked about Forbrick earlier, he drove for him one night, or maybe two even.
And he drove for Cahill once over at Spoon River Speedway.
Yeah.
We went over there and we followed him. So we never ride with somebody because if he gets fired, then we got to walk home. But Spoon River Speedway, I mean, if you've ever been there, it's like a great big bowl. And
So many Eldora. Really.
yeah, he's got like 21 inches of stagger, and he goes, "Can you guys get me any more stagger?" And it's like, well, we don't think they make any more stagger. On the way home, you know, Danny always drove the speed limit. If it was 90 or above, he was okay, you know. And so we're flying along, we're doing 100, and so 2 cops go flying by us. He says, I got to stop and change my shorts. Yeah. Told me once, he says, yeah, he said, I had to go back to school. I said, what kind of school did you go? He said, driving school. So I walked in there and the teacher says, we have a professional race car driver here that needs lessons. Remember when he got too many speed tickets and had to go to driving school?
I have a question for Nicole, actually, if she was willing to talk. How was he as a dad?
I remember, like you said, they were building a garage for him to put sprint car in. We had a pet pig. We had a lake lawn.
And the trampoline. You love the trampoline. Couldn't get you off the trampoline.
Hey Marty, what was the Australian guy that came over and worked with this person? stuff.
He was there before my time.
Vaughn was?
Oh.
Yeah.
No, he was here, he worked with us to learn about sprint cars.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but I remember he tried to get Danny to eat Vegemite. That didn't go over real good.
You ever taste that stuff?
No, I don't like
that. Is the worst damn thing you ever had in your life.
Where's Wade Unger when we need him?
This guy came over.
It wasn't Titch, was it?
No, it was.
No, Titch came over with Max. That's
He might
right.
have been Tasmania guy or something, but he gave me some fishing lures. He ran Danny's car for a little bit. He wanted to learn about sprint car racing, so when he first came, he stayed at my dad's house. Was it Dion Appleby?
Dion Appleby,
I couldn't
yeah.
think of it.
So, friends with Max Dundee. I think he was from Tasmania. Yeah.
You can stay now, Bill. You got some history on there. So.
But he came
got
over
through
to
the TV.
He came
Yeah.
over to help sprint car racing, and he ran Danny's car or something during the national or something. But when he first got here, he was a straight-laced kid. Did not tell any stories. He was real polite and everything.
Then what?
And then by the end of the summer, he would tell stories. The funniest thing I remember about him, they called their pickups Utes or something, utility trucking. So we're down at McDonald's when they work in El Camino. We went out there. Danny's just laughing at it, teasing him on. He goes, "What is that?" I said, "It's half Ute, half car." You never seen nothing, but we had a lot of fun with that. Danny liked that kid. We had a lot of fun with that.
Much rubbed off on him.
Yeah.
He got hit with a rock over here in turn 4. It bloodied his mouth. And look at that.
Yeah.
That's the last time he got in the car.
I remember one time we were not at your mom and dad's house, but right, what was it? Your Aunt Mary, who lived right? Rose, Aunt Rose. You guys were eating watermelon down there, and me and Danny went up to the house and we grabbed a whole great big box of T-shirts. He gave all the T-shirts to all the relations. That's the way it was. You'd give anybody a T-shirt or a hat. If they didn't have any money or something, they wanted one, they'd get it.
Old boy put a lot of happiness in a lot of people's lives, old Danny.
Indeed.
Yeah.
He put a lot of happiness, a lot of fun in the short life we're here, man. Danny, we're only here for a short time, brother.
Well, you saw the respect on that tribute video too. All the crews and drivers that were lined up that night. I mean, it was definitely something else. I remember that night. 2 reasons. One, we broke and I was already up in the grandstands drinking beer, but that also happened to happen on my birthday, so I'll never forget that. But you just had that bad feeling that we just lost one of the most important drivers in Knoxville, and we did, folks. And when I'll be honest, when Bill asked me to come up here and do this, I wasn't sure I wanted to do it or could do it, because we had a lot of good times together. And
I've talked to a lot of guys who can't do it.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it. John Carney would have loved to have been here. He's a good friend of Danny's. They used to play Liar's Poker out here at the Pit Shack.
Pit Shack, oh.
Yeah. And, John's daughter was playing softball or something today. But, I talked to Larry Penniger. It's tough for him. And, so a lot of the guys that you race with, it's tough for them to come and talk about that sort of thing.
Well, how I found out actually after that, all the guys, Christy from the 55 car, Pack and Tex Gatrell had the souvenir stand about there, and that's how I found out.
Yeah.
And that's the most time I've been broken up. The second time was Brian Clausen. That hit me hard, both of them.
Yeah, we got a big fan right here, and probably number one fan of the time. Jen, that's the reason she told me that she's here is because of Danny Young, and you could have been very old back then.
I remember Nicole when she was a little girl with blonde curly hair,
Holy
lived next to
Lord.
Virginia.
Yeah.
My mom was actually roommates with Danny's cousin Connie, and so I was probably 12 years old.
Yeah.
I still have my Danny Young shirt on that little girl's got on. It's in a box, it's signed. So yeah. And Rose, you guys talked about Rose. She was Aunt Rose to me. My mom lived on the east side, so.
Was Aunt Rose the one with the towel?
Yes.
You wiped it on everything?
Yes.
And then come wipe it on your face? Yeah. That needs cleaning. Yeah. All over your face.
But
Yeah. The other one from Minnesota.
But the first annual front row was the Danny Young Memorial.
Yeah. Yeah, 1996. They're celebrating 25 years of that here in 2 weeks with Front of Town, but it was actually a Danny Young Memorial, and then he got moved up to the state fairgrounds. Terry won the first one, and I'd have to look at the trophy. I think he won the last one, didn't he? Yeah. Up there too. So, if you get a chance, take a look at this stuff over here. And of course, the car's outside.
2001.
Yeah.
And then didn't they have one like you said, 2015?
Yeah, the NSL race.
NSL race, yeah. Terry did one.
Craig Delancey won that.
Yeah.
But I know Cram won the first night, and then the second night.
Yeah.
Then it came here 1 year.
That was the last time Terry raced one of his own shows. 'Cause
1 year it was in Davenport, got rained out.
Yeah, and then it came here the next after the season, because it was both classes.
Yeah.
Just a side note, because we were talking about me being, I mean, that's how I got to be a sprint car fan, was because of Danny. And me and his, well, it was probably his second or third cousin, I don't know, Joe, anyway, was Virginia's grandson. And we're still friends today. But in a box, we took a bed sheet out to Jen's clothesline and we spray painted it. I don't know, Go Through Wire, I don't know, Danny Young or something we put on it. We hung it over the edge of the grandstands at the fairgrounds. It was like a championship night or whatever. And like he stopped, he saw it sitting in the car. I mean, we just thought that was the coolest thing when we were, 12, 13 years old.
Then where did you guys, you used to park on the front stretch towards Tunnel 1, if I remember right?
No, yeah, we parked next to Guy Forbrook most of the time. And Guy always parked right there next to the push-through lane.
Yep. Well, as you can tell, they're playing my song, so I'm going to have to get going here pretty soon. So
I was going to say, you could just follow the yelling to see where they were.
Yeah, a couple times. So we want to thank everybody for coming out. Definitely, if you guys want to keep on mingling and talking, I'm sure Bill will leave this place open as long as he needs to. But check things out. Thank you so much for inviting me, Marty. You can blame me because I told him to call you. So
well, thanks for calling me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody showing up.
Thanks, Marshall.
Yep. And I'll have it up early next week.
All right, buddy.
And there's cards downstairs. I have some on me, business cards. But I also have some downstairs for people to grab.
Thanks, guys.
This next audio clip is from Saturday night. Little did we know after the show Saturday, about several hours later, that a driver would pick up a race win that raced with Danny on his final night. This clip you can hear from Victory Lane, courtesy of K&I KRLS and Mike Roberts. But the stat is, and I'll repeat it, I'll tell you now what the stat is again. There were 5 drivers that still race today that raced on Danny Young's last night. It's Jeff Swindell, Sammy Swindell, Jack Hunchild, Terry McCarl, and Chris Walraven. Little we know later Saturday night that Chris Walraven won the Pro Sprints. Coming up is hearing his comments, courtesy of Mike Roberts on the PA through K9KRLS.radio.
Veteran Chris Walraven. Chris Walraven getting out of the race car in Victory Lane. He'll talk with Mike Roberts here in a moment.
Let him catch his breath for about a half a second here. First of all, congratulations. Chris, heck of a race. You had a 2-second lead for a while. It ended up being about 1.1 second. You asked that when you got out. How close was second? You were way out in front.
You know, after last week, we led about half the feature, and I was scared to death I was going to make another mistake around the lap car, but thank goodness everything worked out all right this week.
I'm being told in the Pro Series /305 that you passed Randy Smith as oldest to win a feature here at Knoxville now. They're telling me that you're the oldest one to win a feature in this class now. You just passed Randy Smith. The oldest, deafest guy to ever win. Yeah. Well, I know I am. I think Randy Smith was before, and I'm really not sure that's a good thing, but, man, I feel good. Feel like I could do it another 5 decades, but probably won't. Probably won't. You know, today we had the salute to Danny Young over there, and Marshall Haynes told me that you were one of about 5 guys left that were actually still racing now that actually raced when Danny raced. Man, I can't believe that's been 25 years. I sure miss him. Probably one of the most fierce competitors that anybody will ever try to beat, and none of us did a very good job of doing that, and God bless Danny Young and his family, and I sure miss him. Race fans, give it up. Your feature winner tonight again is Chris Walraven. All right.
In closing, there's several people I'd like to thank that participated in this. First of all, Bill Wright from the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum, Mike Roberts and Marty Stevenson, and Chris Crone for providing the little video. Also, Jeff Grummer, as you could hear in the deal, and also K&A Careless for the audio clip of the victory lane later that night. This has been the Dirt Racing Podcast.